Welcome to URL Unzip, Reboot, and Leave, a podcast about the psychology that moves us. Through real conversations with thinkers, doers, and seekers, we explore how we adapt, evolve, and find meaning. So let's unzip, reboot, and leave. Today, our guest is Mr. Kush Mukherjee. He is working in financial crime risk management. He worked across APAC, Europe, US. He is currently working closely with anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing compliance, fraud prevention for financial institutions. Today, our podcast topic is psychology of financial crime. We will explore the practical information and how these crimes happen. Please welcome Kush Mukherjee. How are you, Kush Mukherjee? Kushda?
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you. I'm good and I hope you're well. And thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you. Okay, straight. First question.
Sure.
This financial crime, okay, what is the history behind it? I know it started with human greed
Hmm.
for ages, probably, but can you tell a little bit of history about it?
Sure. Look, in my opinion, financial crime is probably as old as commerce itself. Ever since mankind has engaged in trade, barter of goods and services, there always has been the element of indulging in some sort of activities which may not necessarily have been legitimate. So if you kind of look at the chronology of events, I mean, ancient times you would have fraudulent weights as you traded in, commodities or grains, etc. There were issues of counterfeiting coins in the medieval ages, stories or incidents that we may have read about. But as time progressed, 17th, 18th century, stock markets and international trade grew. So we saw the rise of insider trading and bribery to quite an extent. And then, of course, as you've seen in the Hollywood movies, as we got to the 20th century, you got organized crime syndicates who kind of, in a way, led this whole initiative around money laundering. And some of you who follow Hollywood movies may have found references to Al Capone and his landromats in the 1930s. This has become a lot more serious post 9/11, where financial crime and terrorism financing kind of became linked, and thereby helping shape or probably ensuring that there was a more serious efforts towards shaping modern anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism finance laws. Today, financial crime is right up there with technology. It is digital, it is borderless. There's psychological cybercrime, there's laundering around crypto assets, deepfakes, synthetic identities. So it has gone digital to an extent beyond imagination. So that's really, to your question, it has always been there since time immemorial, starting from ancient times, which was more rudimentary, to absolutely technology based as it is today.
I will tell you these words and please explain for a layman just to understand what's behind it. Okay.
Sure.
So, okay, in your realm, financial crime, in that umbrella, fraud. So how it happens or what is it?
Yeah. So fraud, the way I look at it is more trying to deceive someone or deception for personal gain. So you're trying to, you do not have legitimate, honest intentions, and you're trying to essentially hoodwink the other person or, indulge in deception for your own personal gains. So, in some cases, forged documents, you must have heard where people provide fraudulent documents either to obtain some credit. There is Ponzi schemes, which we have heard of in the developing economies, where people invest money and they are promised a certain return, but they never get it. There are also more instances in more recent times around identity theft, where people steal your identity to either get a loan or to use it for illegitimate purposes. So fraud, simply put, more deception for personal gain.
Now, money laundering. I heard these words. I understand a little bit, but mostly I don't understand. Please explain.
Yeah, it's good that you asked this. Look, money laundering, as the word suggests, is essentially cleaning what you call dirty money or money that you've got from illegitimate sources to look legitimate, right? Uh, in a lot of cases, when you talk of terrorism financing could be more ideological. So it's not always illegitimate money or dirty money, but it could be legitimate money, tax paid money, but being used to fuel terrorism or ideology-based extremism. So the difference between the two is laundering you would normally do to clean the money, and cleaning the money essentially to ensure that where you got the money from, the sources which were illegitimate, illegal, you are now trying to clean it in a way so as to look legitimate. And terrorism financing, as I said, it could be in a lot of cases legitimate money, but being used for ideological purposes and for extremism. I hope that explains. If you want me to explain more, happy to.
So, and it is like irrespective of borders, right?
That
So
is true.
in
That's irrespective of borders. Yeah,
so
that's
in
true.
one country, money is earned in an illegitimate way, and
Hmm.
then that being used in a white way in another country for another purpose or something like that.
Absolutely. Money laundering essentially could happen irrespective of geographical boundaries. For example, one may have sold a property in a particular country and avoided paying capital gains tax, for example. That money, which is taxable money, is then moved through, certain dubious channels to be invested or placed in a society which is a little bit more accepting. So think of it as a simple way where, this is one such example where a certain money trail is being moved and thereby being laundered to make it look legitimate in its new receiving country. So you're right, absolutely. It's border independent. It's more a case of where that money is to be placed and integrated into the larger ecosystem, and the process that one undertakes to clean that money from the source to where it's being placed.
Mm. Now, as a layman, all this money, because sometimes these amounts are really huge, you cannot
Mm,
just travel it with like a physical cash.
mhm,
Everything is done digitally.
mm.
Because it is a digital way, can't we have the footprint of it so that it can track down?
Yes, there are various means and tools that institutions and law enforcement agencies use to be able to track down, essentially looking at transactions which give the indications of structuring, for example, as it's called within the industry, where people may place smaller amounts into the system. There is intelligence both on the technology side and in terms of information sharing between law enforcement agencies, financial institutions, where there are tools available to be able to track such instances of moving money illegally.
So now this cyber crime, okay?
Mm.
Now cyber crime itself is a huge thing. And
Yes.
within that, cyber enabled financial crime, a
Mhm.
very niche
Mm.
area.
Mm.
Please explain this.
It's pretty simple, and it's kind of self-explanatory in the way it's described. So financial crime is still the crime in itself is now using the internet or digital modes for fulfillment. So as an example, online scams. So a lot of times, maybe some years ago, you would have messages that you won millions of dollars from a lottery in Nigeria. Then you have romance scams. You have, phishing, for example, where people try and get information from you. You are asked to click on certain links so that they can get those funds. So financial crime essentially, but using digital channels or using the internet at a very simplistic level to be able to get to you, as compared to a physical financial crime where someone may just rob you off the street. So that's really the difference. It's still the intention to commit crime, usage of tools to commit crime, but those tools now become digital. So they're using the internet to do so.
Is there any data like this, let's say like 50 years ago,
Hmm.
because of financial crime, let's say world lost X amount of dollar.
Yeah.
Okay, with inflation and all these things, now that amount gone up exponentially or it is similar? Any data around it?
Yes, there is data around it, and depends on which source that you look at. The Nasdaq publishes data around financial crime losses. There are information available within Australia also, which estimate the extent of losses that happen because of financial crime. But in spite of all of this, fact remains that in our industry we call it typologies. Different types where people may commit crime is only becoming smarter. It's getting smarter, more refined on a day-to-day basis. So it's a cat and mouse game where the law enforcement and the financial institutions and the industry participants are setting in controls, frameworks, and technology to be able to stop this. Whereas on the other side, there are of course the criminals who are coming up with newer techniques, smarter techniques to be a step ahead. So yes, to answer your question, there is data available, and there are multiple sources. As I said, you could look at the Nasdaq data on financial crime. Our regulator, Austrike, also publishes data which is available online. So to be able to get an idea of the estimate of losses that happen because of financial crime.
Can you give any dollar value for it, like
Uh,
100 billion for one institution, or as a world in general?
Yes, I'll give you, two figures that come to my mind, and these are more in approximate terms. Roughly about 480 odd billion dollars were lost in, scams alone. That was estimated by the Nasdaq last year. I would encourage your viewers to, look at the reports directly, just in case I've got, some numbers off the mark. To the best of my recollection, $60 billion were, spent just to manage financial crime within Australia alone. So that's the extent of damage that we are talking about.
Wow. Okay. It feels like, in our social structure, more polished or innovative or intellectual you are, it's like a social hierarchy. The pyramids is like inequalities going up. In crime
Mm.
world, it also seems like more educated, more sharper you are actually making more buck on the top.
Yes, yes, indeed. Look, bulk of the transactions that happen are all digital now. Uh,
Exactly.
and, and digital means you've got a variety of assets. You've got crypto, you've got stable coins, then you've got blockchain. I mean, depending on which medium that you use. And that requires a certain amount of intelligence to be able to structure those products accordingly and figure out innovative ways to launder money. So yes, you're right. It does require, and I don't mean it as a compliment to the people who are doing it, but it does require a certain amount of skills.
What about, like, as an institution, when you start track all these, do you go to the dark web as well? Do you have to, or as an institution, you don't necessarily go there?
Um, I wouldn't necessarily make a generalized statement of whether institutions go to the dark web or not. I will just you know uh, leave it for viewers to assess that institutions would follow all legitimate and legal means that are allowed by law in each jurisdiction to be able to identify, track, and stop the illicit chain of money.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, from your experience, who does more these kind of crime, the insiders or the outsiders? I mean, inside from an organization, more crime happen than outsiders fishing and poking and all these things.
Look, it depends on the crime, and there is no insider outsider, and I'll tell you why. In certain criminal typologies, like insider trading, that of course is happening from certain individuals or entities who are aware of certain information that is specific to that organization or institution. So in that situation, yes, more internal. But otherwise, laundering of money could happen from any entity, any individual. It could be regular people like you and me who have a specific need and are figuring out ways, preferably shortcuts to be able to get to their end state. So it's driven by intention, it's driven by set of circumstances, and it's also driven by essentially the nature of the person who's committing it. So I won't necessarily segregate it between internal and external. Of course, as I said, certain typologies, certain criminal activity may be restricted to people within an institution, insider trading, for example.
Direct impact to a normal human being, we can imagine, like all these phishing email or phone call or SMS and stuff like that. And when you are talking about, like, when someone is attacking institutions accounts and then trying to attract money from there, and that is also kind of insurance and all these things happen, what indirect impact to the normal human being of it?
Oh, there's a lot of direct impact, and I'll kind of stress across both direct and indirect. I mean, direct impact. I mean, think of it as fraud. Victims lose their savings, right? You have romance scams, you have investment scams, so you do lose your life savings. That's a big direct impact. Other
That is
is
the individual level. I mean, the
at
direct impact, sorry.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Another example of direct impact could be, when you have cyber-enabled crimes, for example, phishing, cyber as in using of the internet, identity theft. So you lose your identity, and that could be used for, illegitimate, nefarious purposes. There is, of course, if you, for any reason, if your identity theft results in some sort of terrorism financing, you have safety risk as well. So that's a direct impact. These are, I've called out, two or three of them. Indirect impact is, of course, not just on the individual, on the larger ecosystem as well. I mean, there's corruption that results or is a function of all of this going together. There's market abuse. When you're trying to launder money, there's tax evasion. These don't necessarily hit you immediately, but they will, over a period of time, erode trust. They will increase inequality. They will raise costs because institutions in some geographies may be forced to pass compliance costs on to customers. So those are the indirect impact uh, of financial crime on people and large ecosystem.
Okay. Now, the big word AI is transforming everything and definitely transforming the financial crime itself and the detection also.
Hmm.
So, can AI truly understand the intent, like the full ethical or morality or the drift from that, all these human nuances?
Hmm. It's a brilliant question, Gautam. AI is very good at spotting patterns, anomalies, risk signals. But in my personal opinion, it doesn't understand intent. It would infer risk from behavioral changes. So, for example, sudden transfers, out of pattern expenses, unusual networks. So, for example, to give you an example, if you normally send $5,000 to your family overseas, and and you have been doing that for, let's say, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, and you suddenly decide to send $50,000. So AI will not understand the intent as to why you did that, but it will certainly infer the risk based on your behavior or financial behavior over a period of time, and that will come up as an alert. These algorithms and models learn more. Future artificial intelligence and psychology models may get closer, and I certainly believe that would happen. But as of today, what I'm seeing in the marketplace, AI would detect symptoms and not motives.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. So, this AML, KYC, all these models, definitely you guys are working on, all the institutions in the world are working on. Can they, we have to keep pace with this psychological reality of crime. We have no choice. How you see the hopeful future?
Look, my and the future is, there are a couple of dimensions to it. First, from a regulation perspective, I think the regulators are looking at this very seriously, and there's a lot of interaction between industry participants and the regulator, and there is a very comprehensive set of rules and the law that makes it very, very clear of controls and frameworks and detection strength and reporting requirements, obligations that institutions have. So there is I would say a very fit for purpose set of laws in this country and rules in this country, and that's only going to get sharper. On the institutional side, institutions are investing a lot in enhancing their money laundering and counterterrorism finance frameworks. You'd be happy to know that 92% of the companies are in various surveys that you look at have stated that they are going to increase and only invest more in their AI-enabled frameworks to detect and prevent financial crime, and only 1% believe that they have done enough. So the future is significant, specifically in terms of building those capabilities. The third thing, in terms of my view on the future, is that detection of financial crime will become or is becoming more real time, specifically from a fraud perspective. So you think of it as streaming analytics in real time to be able to control the illicit flow of funds. So that's what some of the thoughts are that I have in terms of what the future is going to look like.
On that, thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Thank you, Kusta, for your time. Hopefully, our audience will get some meat out of it.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you for having me on your podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.